Welcome today to our lesson. Topic is excretory system. So we need to define some terms here. One of them is excretion. We need to define excretion because we want to deal with the excretory system. Excretion simply means separation and elimination of waste metabolic products. Waste metabolic products. So from the definition, we have two concepts that we must understand. We have separation and elimination. We know that tissues or cells usually carry out metabolic reactions, and in the process, they utilize substrates which are metabolized, and there's production of waste metabolic products. So if this is a cell, it is carrying out metabolism, there'll be formation of waste metabolic products inside the cell. So this waste metabolic product the products have to be separated first and then eliminated from the cell. We are going to look at several examples of waste metabolic products, but we must be able to find out why is it that it is importance of excretion. We have already said that during metabolism there is formation of waste metabolic products. Some of these products, or most of them, are poisonous. A very good example is carbon 4 oxide. Carbon 4 oxide, also called carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide. Others include ammonia, urea, and so many others. Because they are poisonous, they have to be separated and eliminated from the cells. Otherwise, they are going to interfere with the normal functioning of the cells and the body as a whole. Therefore, they have to be separated and eliminated. Otherwise, they interfere with the efficient functioning of the body. Examples of waste metabolic products. I know you can be able to identify several, as we have mentioned, but we want to mention, as we also point out, how they can be eliminated. Carbon 4 oxide. Carbon 4 oxide is a waste metabolic product which mainly emanates from respiratory or originates from respiratory processes. In your early stage, you are able to learn something about respiration. You are able to find out that during respiration, substrates are broken down, specifically glucose and others like amino acids and fatty acids. They're usually broken down to release energy as the main product. But we have byproducts which include carbon 4 oxide. Carbon 4 oxide is a metabolic waste because if left to accumulate, it dissolves in the plasma of cells to form weak carbonic acid. Weak carbonic acid, we know that all acids usually affects the functioning of enzymes. So if it is left, it will interfere with the working of enzymes. in digestive system, we came across several enzymes. We were able to identify that different enzymes will work in different pH range. So there is need for this weak carbonic acid or carbon dioxide to be eliminated. Others include nitrogenous waste products, Nitrogenous waste products mainly originate from metabolism of proteins, and specifically in this case, amino acids, because we have already mentioned that we can only have proteins being absorbed in the simple forms. The simple forms of proteins are amino acids. So examples of this nitrogenous waste include ammonia. So we are saying examples of this include ammonia. When you take in a meal of proteins, sometimes you'll have taken in excess. Proteins will be broken down to form amino acids. And you are already aware that proteins or amino acids are necessary in building of cells and tissues. If there is excess amino acids in the body cannot store. The body cannot store. It is never stored in the body. But instead, these amino acids will go to the liver. In the liver, we are going to have several reactions taking place on the excess amino acids. One of the things that will happen is that the AS will be converted into ammonia. That process in the liver, where excess amino acids are converted into ammonia, is called deamination. So deamination will take place in the liver, forming ammonia. Well, I was just indicating how this ammonia is formed. Ammonia is a metabolic waste product. The reason being is poisonous. In fact, when it dissolves in the plasma, it will form ammonium hydroxide, which is one of the strongest bases. It means it will alter the pH of the cells. This ammonia again will further in the same liver undergo several other processes to form urea. And one of the things that happens, there's addition of carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide will react with ammonia in the liver again. Because it's poisonous, it has to be converted into less poisonous substance. So ammonia combines with or reacts with carbon dioxide, and then it forms a less poisonous product, urea. So those are chemical symbols of the same. Urea is less poisonous. That is why it is the majority of the nitrogenous waste product that is usually found in urine. Otherwise, if urine was containing high concentration of ammonia, I've said it will form a base, very strong base, which actually alters the pH, and sometimes strong bases have a scorching effect. So ammonia is one of them. Another nitrogenous waste is, as I've mentioned, urea, and we have known how it is found. We have a lactic acid. lactic acid. We have uric acid. Other waste metabolic products also include hydrogen peroxide. So this one again has to be broken down. We know how it is broken down by an enzyme catalase. And then it forms water and oxygen gas. And indeed, the two are less poisonous, or not poisonous at all. Hydrogen peroxide is poisonous, but after being acted on by this enzyme catalase, it will form water and oxygen, which are less poisonous. Other metabolic wastes that are not seriously poisonous include excess water. Excess water. Although we know that excess water, for instance, during respiration, if a carbohydrate is being broken down in respiration, there'll be energy, we know ATP, energy. There'll be carbon 4 oxide, and there'll be formation of water. This water is supposed to be in appropriate amounts. If it is too high, it's going to interfere with the osmotic pressure or osmotic balance. It will interfere with the osmotic balance of the body. That's why we are saying excess water can be an excretory product or a waste metabolic product. Again, excess heat. Excess heat is also another example of a waste metabolic product. We have already pointed out that during metabolism of carbohydrate, especially in respiration, there is ATP energy. So we can have a lot of energy being released. Excess is supposed to be eliminated from the body. Otherwise, the cells are going to be burned, or it will interfere with the activity of enzymes. Having looked at the waste metabolic products, now we find out organs that are involved in respiration, in excretion that is, which indeed form the excretory system. We shall start with the very basics, like the lungs. Lungs form part of excretory system because we have already pointed out that during respiration in cells, there is formation of carbon 4 oxide. Carbon 4 oxide can only be eliminated from the system through the lungs when one breathes out or during exhalation. So one of the waste metabolic products excreted through the lungs is carbon 4 oxide. And indeed, it is true, if you did an experiment, you blow your air through lime water, or sodium hydroxide, you realize that it is going to change to white precipitate. It changes to white precipitate due to formation of a carbonate due to presence of carbon 4 oxide. Other waste metabolic products include excess water and excess heat. That's why when you blow on a surface, a glass surface, you realize that there will be condensation of colorless liquid, and that liquid is actually water. Other organs involved in excretion is liver. Liver forms also a major excretory organ. Therefore, it forms part of excretory system. We have already pointed out that if there is excess amino acids in the body, first, any food that is from digestive system will go to the liver, and one of them could be amino acids. We have found out that amino acids are usually converted in the liver to form ammonia. And of worth note is that we have said ammonia is very poisonous. Because it is poisonous, in the liver something happens to ammonia, it will be changed further to urea. Urea is a less poisonous product which will be let out of the liver to the rest of the circulatory system, to the kidney for excretion, and to the skin sometimes. So in the liver, this excretion of ammonia and urea. We also have the major part, or the skin, before we look at the kidneys. In the skin, we realize that one of the most important processes that occurs on the skin is sweating. Sweating includes release of fluid material. That fluid is called sweat, and the content of sweat includes several things. One of them is water. Others include urea, ammonia, and of course with salts, mineral salts. So in essence, skin is also involved in excretion of urea, ammonia, mineral salts, and even lactic acid. That's why, for the reason of mineral salts, you realize that your sweat, when you test your sweat, it is usually salty because of the presence of mineral salts. And then the very major organ for excretion is the kidney. So kidney forms the largest part of the excretory system. So we shall discuss it further. Kidneys. In human beings, you realize that human beings have two kidneys, and they are located in the lower abdominal cavity to the dorsal side. Located to the dorsal side of the abdominal cavity. Dorsal means the back side. If you want to reach your kidneys very fast, if it is a surgical procedure, it will be done from the back and on the lower abdominal cavity. If you look at the structure of the kidney, if we take one and do a cross section, this is how it appears. It's usually bean-shaped structure with layers. This part is called the cortex. This one is the medulla. And then this part is called the pelvis. So this is the cross-section of the kidney. But kidneys usually have structural and functional units called the nephron. Nephron usually runs from pelvis through the medulla, and sometimes part of it reaching the cortex. So we look at the nephron. Now, why discuss nephron? Because it is where all the functions of the kidney takes place. We shall be mentioning some after we have gone through the nephron. So this is the structural and functional units. And functional unit of the kidneys. In other words, if the kidney is meant for excretion, the part that is involved is the nephron. That's why we are saying it's a structure. And then where the functions of the kidneys are accomplished. Structural and functional unit of the kidney. I'll do a small structure or a simple structure of the same nephron. So it has, on the anterior side, cup-shaped structure, which leads into a coiled part with a descending arm of that tubule, and then ascending, then coils a little bit again. Not a little bit, so much. It's highly coiled or folded. Then lets into a duct. But across this, I'll use very simple. We have network of capillaries. Then we have main arteriole supplying the nephron. That arteriole is called afferent arteriole. And then here we have efferent blood vessel. And then in between these two, we have capillaries, highly branched capillaries. So those highly branched capillaries are called glomeruli. Then we have that cup-shaped structure is called Bowman's capsule. After the person who discovered it first. And then we have the proximal convoluted tubule, which opens into this ascending and descending arm of the loop of Henle, and then goes to another structure, distal convoluted tubule, which opens into collecting duct. Now, after you have known the structure of the nephron, then it becomes easy for you to explain how excretion takes place. So what happens, we are going to have blood entering the nephron through afferent arteriole. This blood is rich in any blood. First of all, it has plasma, blood plasma cells. It has cells, red blood cells, white blood cells, platelets, dissolved food materials, dissolved food materials, dissolved food materials, and of course nitrogenous waste. The prominent being urea. Why we say urea? Because we have already said ammonia could be there, but it is poisonous, very. So it will be better for this nitrogenous waste to be carried in form of urea, which is less poisonous. We have mineral ions. So we have blood entering the bone meniscus, the nephron through afferent arteriole. It has all these components. And then without forgetting proteins, blood proteins. Remember in our previous lesson we looked at blood proteins, which included globulins, albumin, and fibrinogen. So it will get into the glomeruli. But something happens as this blood enters the glomeruli. It is usually at a high pressure, because any blood flowing in an arteriole is at a high pressure. This blood it has branched directly from aorta, then into renal artery. Therefore, it's at a high pressure. And remember, this part has a large lumen, and the other part has a small lumen. It is very clear in the diagram. You can see the lumen large, lumen small. So being small here also increases pressure in the glomeruli. So there are two factors that are increasing pressure. One, blood branching directly from aorta, renal artery, then into arteriole is flowing at a high pressure. Then as you look at this point, we have said this one is small lumen and then large lumen. So because of that, blood is coming, but it reaches a point of resistance. So it develops what you call back resistance. Pressure is going to increase in the glomeruli. When pressure increases in the glomeruli, small materials of this blood will now get into the Bowman's capsule. What are some of those materials? Some of those materials include mineral ions, urea, dissolved food materials. Dissolved food materials include glucose, amino acids, plasma. But cells cannot pass through the glomeruli because the pores are very small. Blood proteins cannot pass through the pores of glomeruli. They are very large in size. So we realize that all these materials will flow into Bowman's capsule with the exception of blood cells and blood proteins. So there will be some fluid inside the Bowman's capsule. That fluid is called glomerular filtrate. So that all that process that has taken place in the Bowman's capsule is called ultrafiltration. So one of the process that takes place in the nephron to accomplish excretion is ultrafiltration. Ultra means we are using a lot of energy, a lot of pressure for filtration to happen. And indeed we have seen how pressure has built two factors: afferent having a wider lumen, efferent a small lumen, creates back resistance, therefore increasing pressure in the glomeruli. And then also blood flowing directly from the afferent, from the aorta into afferent. Pressure increases. Materials of small molecular weight are filtered to form glomerular filtrate. So it will be flowing down. Glomerular filtrate will flow down this tubule. But as it reaches some point, some of the materials will be reabsorbed. Remember, we have dissolved food materials like glucose. Glucose is still important in the body. So if it is allowed to flow through this tubule, it will enter into the bladder and it will be released as glucose. You will have lost glucose from your body. So it has to be reabsorbed back into the bloodstream. So First reabsorption takes place in the proximal convoluted tubule. What are some of the materials that will be reabsorbed? Water. Remember, plasma is water. Water will be reabsorbed. Materials like glucose, it is still important in the body, will be reabsorbed. Amino acids will be reabsorbed. We have mineral ions will be reabsorbed. But how? Water will be reabsorbed by osmosis. In your early stages of learning, you came across osmosis. But these three will be reabsorbed by diffusion and active transport. Not all of it will be reabsorbed. That's why it is coiled, just to give it time. But some glomerular filtrate will continue flowing. Not all of them will be reabsorbed. So it will get into the loop of Henle. So we have said these are the materials that will be reabsorbed into proximal convoluted tubule. So before we even go further, we must mention that another process that takes place in the kidney to achieve its function is selective reabsorption. And indeed we have seen there is selective reabsorption. Not all the materials, urea has not been reabsorbed because it's a poison. It has to continue flowing until it gets out through the urinary bladder. But these one are useful. Glucose for purpose of releasing energy in respiration. Amino acids are still important. They can be oxidized to release energy or be involved in building tissues. Ions, important. They are solutes, important in maintaining osmotic pressure. Water is important in maintaining osmotic pressure. So the remaining part will flow into the loop of Henle. It is still glomerular filtrate. But you realize that the concentration is increasing because some water has been removed. So again, to prevent excess water being lost, we have this part, loop of Henle. In the loop of Henle, there is reabsorption of ions, mineral ions. Reabsorption of mineral ions under the influence of a hormone called aldosterone. Aldosterone is secreted by a gland that you have come across, adrenal gland. So there will be reabsorption of mineral ions back into the bloodstream. Let me assume that's the bloodstream. So what happens when you have a high concentration of ions in the bloodstream, high concentration, then in the loop of Henle, it creates an osmotic imbalance. That osmotic imbalance will cause, again, if there is any water flowing, to also be reabsorbed back into the bloodstream. So two substances will be reabsorbed, mineral ions and water. The remaining part of glomerular filtrate flows into the distal convoluted tubule. In the distal convoluted tubule, the major material that is reabsorbed is water. Water is reabsorbed under the influence of a hormone called ADH, antidiuretic hormone, secreted by pituitary gland. Glomerular filtrate flows into the collecting duct. Again, water is reabsorbed. Remember, water is reabsorbed by only one means, that is by osmosis. So by osmosis. So at the end of it all, we shall have glomerular filtrate where water has been removed, where glucose, amino acids, mineral ions, and whatever is remaining majorly is the nitrogenous waste, including urea, traces of ammonia. Nitrogenous wastes including urea and ammonia. So whatever that will flow here will contain some water, majority, because urea is highly soluble in water. We'll have urea, we'll have ammonia. We'll have ammonia, and of course, some mineral ions. Some mineral ions. This forms what we call urine. It will now flow into the ureter, which will carry it to urinary bladder. Urinary bladder. We have other bladder like gallbladder. So that's why it is important that you mention urinary bladder. And then from urinary bladder, it flow out through urethra and out of the body. So urine has already been formed. Urine is containing water, major percent, urea, ammonia, mineral ions, and then into ureter and urinary bladder. So from this, we can be able to say that kidney performs a major role, excretion. Excretion, roles of kidney. Excretion, we have seen excretion of urea and ammonia. But as it is doing that, there's also regulation of water. It is involved in osmoregulation. Osmoregulation, maintaining a constant osmotic pressure. We have seen that also some mineral ions, which if they are very excess, they'll pass through urine. If we have very small amount in the glomerular filtrate or in the blood, most of it will be reabsorbed. Therefore, another role will be ionic regulation. Ionic regulation. So we can easily conclude that from all this process, from all this process that has taken place in the nephron, all these three functions or roles have been achieved. Excretion, urea, ammonia is out. Water, if it was excess, you urinate a lot of time when you have taken in a lot of fluid. And if you have stayed a long time without taking water, it will be less urine that is highly concentrated or low amount. Ionic regulation. If you test your urine, it will have salt or it will be salty, which means there's some mineral ions that are being let out through urine. So this one brings us, we can now summarize the urinary system in a simple way. We have seen that the kidney is the major organ. So if the kidney is the major organ, and we have said there are two, in simple terms, we can just show how the urinary system will probably appear. We have the two kidneys, and then they join up to the urinary bladder, and then from urinary bladder is urethra. But at the base here, there is a muscle. So these are the kidneys, but in the kidney we have blood vessel flowing in and out that supplies blood in and out of the kidneys. So that vessel that supplies blood to the kidney is renal artery. And then out is renal vein. This is the kidney. And then from the kidney, after all this process has taken place, collecting duct, the urine now, or whatever that we are calling glomerular filtrate, which is urine containing water, urea, ammonia, mineral ions, will flow from the kidney to urinary bladder through the ureter. So the role of ureter here allows flow of urine from the kidney to urinary bladder. So that is urinary bladder. The role of urinary bladder is to store urine for some time. We cannot just have urine coming from kidney, ureter, urinary bladder, and then out. It will be stored until it reaches a maximum volume. When it reaches a maximum volume, there is a muscle at the base of the urinary bladder will relax. The muscle relaxes. When the muscle relaxes, urine will be let out through urethra, and purpose or excretion will have been achieved. So a very small question as we finish. You can look at this table. We have nitrogenous compound, then percent in blood and percent in urine. Proteins. Proteins in urine, in blood is 9%, and in urine is 0%. Cells, blood cells, here is almost in blood around 20%, here 0%. Urea is 0.03%, but in urine it has increased to 2%. And then uric acid is 0.02% in blood, and then here slightly increases to 0.05%. Ammonium compounds, ammonium compounds 0.001 to 0.04 in urine. So the question is, question part A, why is it that we have 0% proteins and blood cells in urine? Give reason. Give a reason for appearance, or for 0% proteins in urine. We can go together through with you. Now, previously we have already seen that there are two processes that take place in the nephron, which is the major site for functioning of the kidney, ultrafiltration. We said proteins and blood cells are large in size. Therefore, they cannot be filtered out of the blood through the glomerular filtrate. So the reason is proteins and blood cells are large in size. Therefore, they cannot be filtered through the glomeruli in the Bowman's capsule. That's why it is 0%. And then another question, why is it that urea, the concentration of urea increases from 0.03 to 2%? State why. State why concentration of urea increases in urine. Now, the meaning of concentration is the amount of solid per a given volume. In the first instance, when blood was coming into the kidney, it was having a lot of water. But we have realized that there is reabsorption in all the stages: proximal, convoluted tubule, loop of Henle, and distal convoluted tubule. So we realize that most of the water has been reabsorbed. Therefore, by volume, urea is increasing. Urea is increasing due to reabsorption of most of the water. Most of the water has been reabsorbed. Water has been reabsorbed. So we get to the end of that lesson. I hope you have enjoyed. If you have any question, you know how to contact us. Thank you.